Okay, everyone, so we're going to get started then. And so right now we have Sara and Mila. Sara, you let us know when Ugo connects just so I know he's around, okay? Um, so welcome to all of you today. Today we're going to do the webinar for today is on teaching reading. And when we started thinking about this topic for this session, one of the main ideas that came across was how to make it fun and exciting and more engaging and in the classroom for the students. There's a lot of things we could talk about reading, including PDP as a framework, but it seemed like something that was more needed was how to make it more exciting. It's oftentimes a skill that students oftentimes dread a little bit more, and that it's hard to make more interactive because of the nature of having to sit down and read. And but there is a lot we can do with it, and it can and really should be an exciting and fun experience. So that's what we're going to be talking about today with teaching reading. And just to get started, let's look at what we're going to be doing to the agenda. So we'll have 4 main things we'll be doing, or 5. So quickly we'll check in, which will probably be really quick. I always, before we get started with webinars, I like hearing people's voices, so it's just not only my voice, and also so that everyone gets a sense of who's connected. So we'll do a quick check-in just to see who's connected. And I'm hoping by then we'll have another 10 people, let's say.
Yes.
And then we're going to talk about previous experiences with reading, and then we're going to look at 12 tips to make reading more engaging and more fun. And then we're also going to look at some reading strategies that also can help us for that same purpose. And then we'll see what takeaways there are. So that's what we'll be doing today in that order. And well, let's get started just seeing who's online right now. I guess it's still the same 3 people though. And just see how you're doing. So we have a puppy and these little ducks who are here to greet you today, and see how you're doing. So why don't we just quickly go around and just say your name so everyone knows who you are and just how you're doing today before we get started. Who would like to go first?
I'll go. My name and what else, sir?
And how you're doing today, briefly.
My name is Sara Colorado. I'm doing well. Pleasure and nice meeting you here. And I'm looking forward to the workshop.
And where you're from, maybe, just in case people don't remember?
Yes, I'm from Guatemala.
Guatemala. Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Who else is out there? Who else is there? Yvonne, why don't you go?
All right, guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Hi, Sarah and Mila, Franklin and Roger. Ivan from Nicaragua. I'm happy to have Roger on this webinar on this great topic, teaching reading. I know some of the Access teachers are teaching reading, and I've been trying to teach reading too, and I think it could be fun. And that's why I'm here, to see how we can make teaching or learning or reading fun and exciting. Thank you, Roger, for your time.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Okay, I'm Franklin. I'm from Nicaragua. And I'm so happy that you are sharing what you know about this skill that sometimes for teachers in Nicaragua is not complicated, but I think it's practice. And thank you, Roger, for being part of this program. And I hope and I know that we will continue working more on this type of trainings. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely, Franklin. Thank you. Mila, why don't you go ahead?
Hello, my name is Mila. Do you remember me? And thank you, Roger, for sharing with us this knowledge that you have of reading. We are teaching reading and writing right now in the Access program, and I think it will be great help for us to improve our teaching methods. So I hope that we learned a lot today. And hi, everybody. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Francis.
Hi,
Mila. Okay.
Mila and Sarah, I have a quick question about, because I heard a couple of people say that the reading is something that is included in the Access program. And when you say that, is that, in what format is reading normally done with the Access program? Is it something you do in class, out of class? How often do you normally do reading?
Well, we do it in class, during class and as homework assignment. During class, we read. What I do is everybody reads the sentence aloud. Okay, so we can hear everybody is waiting for their turn to read their part. Everybody is paying attention. Okay, so and before that we do a brainstorming about the topic, and well, we do all the activities that I have prepared for the reading session during class, and I do it as a homework assignment too. I give a lot of readings to the students, and they are reading a book right now, and they read Mark Twain for the embassy program. So we do a lot of reading in class in after class.
Awesome, thank you. So it sounds like you do, that's really interesting. Sounds like you do both extensive reading and more intensive reading too. Extensive being when you have to read a book or you have to read more, a greater amount of material over a longer period of time. And then we have also more intensive kind of reading sometimes when we do like a little reading from a textbook in class, and it's a little bit more specific and it's definitely smaller. Well, that's really, really nice to hear. Thank you for sharing. So now, now you can see this next slide. We have 5 questions, and I would like for you to, I'll give you about 30 seconds just to read through these questions. How often do you teach reading in the classroom? Do your students enjoy practicing their reading skills in your opinion? What reading strategies do you have them practice? What's common? What do you like about teaching reading? And what are some challenges about teaching reading in this ESL, EFL context with the students? So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds just to look over these questions, think about them, and then we'll share a little bit, okay? So take about 30 seconds to think through these. Okay, so maybe Mila or Sarah and Ivan and frankly, if you also have something you want to offer, that's fine too. So just look at all these questions. You don't have to necessarily answer all of them, but what are some things you can tell us about these questions in your context in terms of teaching reading?
Well, what teachers are doing here with the access groups we have is that they teach reading every week. They use 1 hour of the classes every week to be working with reading, and we have a specific program for them to use. They are not using just the grammar textbook. It's not the readings that we find in the textbook. It's readers that they are using for that hour. So it's more based on literature component. We teach 6 hours a week to access the students, so they take 1 hour from that schedule to be teaching just reading. They are working different things. What we are planning as a country with all the providers is that they work different levels of strategies in each trimester, and the first year and second year having a difference. What I like about teaching, maybe not just with access students, but in general, is that reading gives the students the opportunity to be creative also. Like all the tasks you can create based on what they are reading, that's going to develop different skills with the students. But some challenges, maybe it will depend on the level of students, how wide you can go with reading tasks, but also that not all students are used to be reading. In the schools, we do have that problem. It's a very low level of reading that they have in all the education system in the country. So that doesn't help the program because we need to start going from very basic strategies with the students for them to be able to develop other skills. That's kind of a summary of the questions I think.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I find that it's really interesting how oftentimes the level of reading comprehension in many different contexts tend to be a little bit lower, and a lot of that I find oftentimes is because of the lack of excitement for reading or interest in reading. And we'll talk a little bit later on about how important that is for making reading a more compelling and fulfilling experience for sure. Thank you. Sarah, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Mila, what about you?
Well, right now we are teaching reading and writing, so we do a lot of reading and writing in class. But in the previous levels, we did reading just like 3 times a week. And I also assigned at the beginning of the level a book to read for the students. And I applied a quiz, a reading comprehension quiz at the end of the level, and that was part of their grade, their final grade. And I encourage students to read a lot because I have always been a reader. I like to read a lot. So for me, it has been like very important to be able to read in English. Has improved my English a lot, and I always tell my students that reading improves your vocabulary and knowledge, and it opens many doors for you when you are able to read and to understand what you're reading. And they like reading. Sometimes they complain because they have to read a book and they are not used to reading a lot, and not even in Spanish. So, but they do it. And reading strategies that we use, skimming, scanning, like you said, extensive reading, intensive reading, many strategies. And I like teaching reading because I like reading a lot. And the challenges are, like I said before, having students enjoy reading. I think it's a process. They get used to, if you from the beginning and encourage the students to read, they will get used to it. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Mila. And I really loved hearing how passionate you sound about the, I'm going to call the art of reading, because it really makes such a difference, and I bet your students are so lucky to have you, because when your teacher shows that kind of passion and excitement towards reading or towards anything that we do right in the classroom, it really is contagious. And I think one of the biggest things that happens is that sometimes as teachers, if we don't read, if we don't do it ourselves, how do you motivate others to do it? It's so hard. And students know it, they feel it, they can see it. So it makes a huge difference. So I really appreciate that coming from you. Okay, I don't know, Ivana or Frank, if you have anything else you want to add, or I think we got a lot from that, but if you have anything else you want to add, go ahead. And if not, we'll move on.
I have, thank you, Mila. And
Yvonne, I think I lost you there. Hello? 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 Did I just lose everybody? Hello?
I'm still here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I kind of lost everyone for a second. Yvonne, are you still there?
Mila is back.
I think he has.
Did you? Yeah, Sarah and Mila, did you guys hear
Only
Yvonne talking?
I can hear you.
Did you hear Yvonne talking?
No, I can hear it.
Okay, Yvonne, I think we lost Yvonne for a second. Okay, that's okay. Yvonne, are you still
Yeah.
there? Okay, I think Yvonne's back now. Yvonne, if you're there, let us know. If not, we'll move on. I'm sure we can hear you later on then. Okay, let's move on and we'll get Yvonne's comments later on. Okay, so we're going to continue then. And what we're going to do now is start talking about tips for making reading engaging and fun. As I was preparing for this, there was so much that I kept on thinking about, but I wanted to narrow it down to something a lot more concrete and doable for this session. So we're going to talk about 12, and I'm sure there's a lot more we could do, and feel free at some when we're done with the 12, if you guys want to offer more that have worked for you, please do share, because I'm sure that you have lots of little strategies and techniques for things that you've done. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking now, so I hope you guys I don't lose you, don't fall asleep. I'll check in halfway through to make sure you're still with me, okay? Okay, so the first one is one that we actually just talking about, which Mila and Sarah, you guys talked about in very clearly, which is showing passion and excitement towards reading. And I think this needs to be something that is not only implicit in what we do. It needs to be very explicit. We need to make students, let them see how excited we are about reading, how passionate we are about reading. Coming in, I don't know, and tell them this week I was reading this book and showing it to them, and then I'm really excited because I learned this and this and that. It helped me with this. It helped with my vocabulary. I learned so much more about a different culture, whatever it is, but really, really transmitting that excitement towards reading. And I'm not going to talk that much more about it because I know that you guys are already very excited about it. So that's a great place to start at. And I think it is the foundation for sure of making reading more exciting and more fun and engaging for our EFL students, is having that foundation of we're excited about it. Because I don't know how many times, even myself, or how many classes I observed where teachers walk in to the classroom, okay guys, now we're going to do reading, pull out your books, and even the teacher's energy goes down and excitement is lost suddenly, because culturally oftentimes it's something hard to feel excited about. So just trying to keep up that excitement to the best of our abilities. Number 2, and this I think is a really, 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 really important one. Asking students about what they want to read and what materials they find exciting. And this is a tricky one because oftentimes, depending on where we work, it might be that the readings have already been pre-selected and we have to follow a set curriculum. That is the case oftentimes. Oftentimes, as teachers, what we might do is bring in readings that we think are really exciting. And I don't know, they might be about the life of Elvis Presley back in the 50s, and maybe that's something that we really love, or about the Beatles. But then when we bring it to class, our students might not be as exciting. I don't know, it might be hard to believe that someone say, who are the Beatles? But that might happen, and students might want to read about, I don't know, Justin Bieber, Katy Perry, who knows? Or if you bring in something from in terms of literature, something that you're really excited about, The Catcher in the Rye, or or a book that you really love, it doesn't mean that the students are necessarily going to like it. So what I find really helpful, and one little thing that I try doing at the very beginning of courses, when I start a course, that's going to include reading in some way, shape, or form, is that I pass out a little handout where I want everyone to write down what topics they like, what things they enjoy reading about, what topics they like talking about, what things they don't like. I even ask sometimes based on genres, what kind of music they like, what kind of movies they like reading about, what kind of parts of history. And then I have a document so that throughout the course, when I'm about to assign a reading or choose a reading, I normally refer back to that, because then that will help me choose something that they're going to be excited about. And if it is, it also might be something where I give them a choice. So for today's reading assignment, we have these 5 different readings. Choose the one that you like. And it just makes a huge difference, because who wants to read something that they're not interested in? I don't know about you, but I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't. How often do we force ourselves to read something that we don't like? And if we do, it's not something that we're going to enjoy. So really thinking about how to offer more choice to our students in terms of what they're reading, how to guide them in choosing, and also how to get their opinions on what is most exciting and engaging to them. So that piece is really important. Number 3, use the materials at a level appropriate and challenging. And the reason why this is extremely important is that if we come into class with a reading that is too easy for the students, they're not going to be engaged. They're not going to find it exciting, because they can read it really fast. And whatever task we end up giving them for that reading, they will do really fast. And when something is not challenging, what do? You normally disengage, you start texting, you start chit-chatting, because there's nothing really pushing you to have to engage more. So, and then on the other side, and then the other hand of it is, if it's something that is too difficult, it's easily to shut down. So I might say, oh God, I just can't do this. I'm done. And I'm done. So I start chatting or texting or thinking about lunch, dinner, the boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, because it's too hard. I just don't have the tools right now to do it. So finding that right level, it can be challenging. It will take time to get to know your students, but it's really important to think about what level is appropriate and what is enough challenge without it being too much overwhelming for them. And I'm going to read this number 4 before I check in with you guys. I've been talking for quite a bit. But 4 is preparing students for reading. And for those of you who are familiar with PDP, it's the pre, during, and post, or pre, while, and post activities. This really refers to that pre-stage, which is everything before they start reading. What are we doing to prepare them? And that might be that if it's a smaller reading that we're working with key vocabulary to help prepare them for the reading. It might be that we're activating their prior knowledge in terms of the topic for the reading. It might be that we use some sort of technique to really get their attention and get them excited about the reading. So it's really key, whatever that we end up doing in the pre-stage, that before we start the reading, that we make them feel excited about reading. And that might be that we show them a small little clip of a preview of what the topic is about. That may be that we share an exciting personal story about it. It could be that we show them really, exciting, dramatic statistics about whatever topics they're about to read about. But something that really will get them thinking about what they're about to read, that will get them excited about what they're going to read and want to read. Because if we just jump directly into the reading, it might be hard to start reading. It's kind of like when you're about to eat. If you jump into that main dish without having your nice little appetizer first, or not having your nice salad before, it's sometimes not as exciting. But when we have these steps that guide us towards reading, it's a little bit more, it's smoother, and it helps prepare us for it. Okay, guys. So before I move into the next set of tips, just because I've been talking for so long, I don't even know if you're there anymore. What are some of your thoughts about this? Either Mila or Sarah, or what are your thoughts about these 4 so far?
Well, I do agree with all the things we need to consider before planning reading. And of course, preparing the students for a process, it's very important. We cannot just jump and ask them to start getting or making results of something if they are not ready. So I do agree about the 4 you have talked about.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, and something that
Mila, what about you?
Oh, okay.
Oh, Frank. Go ahead, Frank.
Okay, something that you mentioned was that the way that you present the reading, if you as a teacher arrive in a very sad way or no excited way about reading, that's what the student are going to repeat. The teacher is not ready for reading, so we are not ready for reading too, because the teacher is not excited about reading. And I like the idea of presenting different choices, like these are 5, 6 readings, which one would you like to read? Or according to real readings, like last Sunday, for example, about the Oscars, the big mistake they made, and read the blogs. Hey, now I brought these blogs about what happened. What do you think? What is your idea? Are real readings that are happening, and students, they really like, read about it.
Absolutely, Franklin. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it's almost like if you think of a newspaper, there's so much in the newspaper and there's so many different sections that instead of saying, I want you to read the section on economy for this week, no, take the whole newspaper and find one article that you will want to read. Just that choice as adults, even teenagers, it makes such a huge difference when we have choice, because then we feel that we're being more responsible for what we're about to do because we chose it. And we're being included in the planning process, so it helps us become more independent, more proactive about our own learning. So that choice piece is really important.
Yeah.
You guys, can you hear me?
Yes, Ivan, I'm sorry you didn't get to share last time. I lost you somehow. I don't know why.
I don't know why. What happened with the internet? I have one
Go
question. Roger, I'd like to share some experience about the level
Please.
of the reading to be appropriate and challenging. I have observed that the readings in the books, like the series I'm using right now, I have some reading exercises, but it's actually graded, modified reading. It's not natural writing or reading. It's not authentic, right? But when it comes to students to read an article from, because I sometimes ask students to read articles from magazines or the websites, they find it difficult, challenging. And then they say, I thought I was able to read because I can read in class. I can do I can complete the task. I can do the exercises. But when it comes when real, authentic reading, it's so difficult. So my question will be, when can I introduce, because you're talking about the level and the challenging of reading in the class, what can I introduce, or how often or should I introduce authentic reading in the class?
Thank you, and that is a wonderful question that that I'd love to talk about, and I've thought about that a lot for sure in the past. And so for me, so the 2 types of readings that you described, which are authentic materials, number 1, versus 2, pedagogically prepared materials, which are all of those that have been designed for the purpose of teaching reading to English second language learners. So for pedagogically prepared materials, there are definitely cons. There are also some pros, some benefits of it, right? I find that I use pedagogically prepared materials, which are the ones that you normally find in the ESL textbooks. They're graded and they've been designed for that. I normally use that, yes, probably with lower levels for sure, but also when, and the reason for lower levels is because normally they've been graded to that specific level. And if not, it's up to you as a teacher to find an authentic material that is effective for that level, and that can be extremely time consuming. Unless you've somehow created your bank of materials where you already have everything ready to go, But also that oftentimes needs to be updated. So they're not, you have to, it's not like you can just search it once in 1999 and you're done, right? You have to continue adding to it. But I find that the other benefit of pedagogically prepared graded materials is that sometimes they're time savers. So oftentimes the honest truth is that I haven't had enough time to prepare, and I know that the reading's in the book, it's ready to go. Oftentimes it comes with activities ready to go too. So sometimes I do that, knowing, fully aware that they're probably not the most effective readings for my group. So I'd say I use those not as often, only when I really have to, or maybe the school I work for kind of, they've asked me to definitely cover it, so then I'll cover it. In terms of using authentic materials and when and with what levels, I would say for all of them. And here's the interesting piece. Even for a lower level, using authentic materials can be very, very effective, and it's necessary. But oftentimes when we think of reading, we think of a page with 2 or 3 paragraphs, or if not bigger than that. And reading for lower levels can be much simpler and easier for them to do, or not easier, more level appropriate. So for example, I've worked with lower levels where we've worked with understanding and reading a bus schedule. That is something that is real life, it's authentic, it's something that they actually do, but it doesn't have that much text. So for me, the key piece when working with lower levels is not use a material that is fully charged and overloaded with text. It might have more visuals, it might have a graph, it might have a chart of some sort. Another example is a menu for lower levels. A menu you have to read, and it might have prices, which are more universal, numbers that they understand. But they have to read what the dishes, what the appetizers are. They have to find 2 or 3 main dishes that they would really order, or 2 desserts, and rank the desserts based on which ones they might want the most. So with lower levels, I would say absolutely still use authentic materials, but choose things that are not overloaded with text, and that is doable. And then as they get their English skills improve, you could start adding more and more text. Does that help answer your question, Ivan?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Roger.
Okay, thank you, Ivan. Okay, let's continue with the next 4 tips then. So for number 5, we have using reading texts that are related to current situations, topics. And Franklin actually just referred to this when he talked about the Oscars, for example, and that huge mistake of the Best Picture going to La La Land instead of Moonlight, who actually won it. So that, I think, is a perfect example of choosing something that's current. And that's why it's really hard sometimes to just have a bank of readings and say, I'm going to pull this one out from 1972 and talk about, I don't know, Gone with the Wind, the review for that movie. Because as human beings, we are more prone to feel excited about something, and with reading in particular, about reading something when it's something that's new and current and something that everyone's talking about. So it is no longer a school classroom-like reading task. It is a reading for life pleasure kind of experience. So, and in that sense, as teachers, we really need to be on our game in the sense of we need to be updated. We need to know what's going on, because then that's what we want to bring into the classroom. And I'll give you an example of that. Oftentimes when I've had people want to teach, students love songs. So I've seen lots of teachers who like bringing lyrics in and using that as material for reading. And then afterwards, in the post stage, they might do something with song and then integrate it with listening somehow. But with songs, it's such, or with lyrics, you have to know what's current. Even if you like Justin Bieber or not, it's something that really will help you, especially with your access students or teenagers or children. And one thing that I do for that is I have a free subscription to Billboard, the billboardmagazine.com. So once a week, I get an email that doesn't take more than 20 seconds of my life, and it shows me the top 10 hits of the week. And the main reason I do that is because then when I come into class, I know what my kids are listening to. I know what they want to talk about. I know whose newest hot song of the week is, and then I can bring that into my classroom. And that's one example of it. The same thing with current movies, TV shows, if they're talking about The Walking Dead or How to Get Away with Murder, or I love how you choose all these bloody TV shows, guys, so those are the ones I'm watching. But just really knowing what the current topics are, what the hot topics are, because that's what they want to do, and that will make them excited automatically. You don't have to do much more work than just bring in those topics, and your day's done. Next one is making sure reading tasks have a clear purpose. As human beings, we like knowing that we have a goal, that we have a task, that we're not just reading for reading. If I walk into a supermarket and I see all the magazines, I'm going to be, or newspapers, I'm going to probably look for something that I am interested in and something that I really want to do. Now, and that is a more of a natural organic process for reading. But in the classroom, if I bring in as a teacher a topic that maybe students might be interested, but I'm not completely sure, I have to give them specific tasks so that they are more motivated for reading. If I just tell them, here's this article, I don't know, this article about the weather from this week, go ahead and read it. They don't know where to start. They don't know what's reading strategy to try to put into practice. They're not developing specific reading strategies. It's really hard to approach reading like that. But if I come in and give them very specific tasks for it, and I say, okay, here's our article. Right now I want you to read through this. I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and I want you to come up with what you think might be the best title for this reading. And I've previously deleted the title or covered it. Then they go into, okay, let's do this. And they have something to do. They're motivated to want to do something. They have a pure purpose. Or I might say, okay, I want you to read a second time, and this time I want you to read, and I want you to find the 5 activities that they're talking about that you could do based on all the raining that's going to happen this week. What can you do? And they go in and they have a clear task. So making sure that they know what they have to do and there's a clear expectation. Number 7, connecting reading to other skills is extremely important, because if they're only reading and not interacting, not speaking with each other, not taking notes, not doing other things, we can really fast and very easily get tired, disengaged, exhausted. But if you have them do that one reading task where they have to look for the title of the reading, and then you say, okay, once you have that, I want you to get up, move around, find someone to work with, and talk about what title you chose and why. Then you're integrating speaking in that example with reading. It makes it more the energy that that is present in the classroom is shifting. The more that you integrate it with other skills, the more you help it shift. So it's not just that one straight line of reading. No, it's reading, speak and talk about it, personalize it, reading, talk about it, take notes, write, reading, speak. So there's more going on, more waves of energy that are coming through that help them stay engaged. And number 8, before I check in with you guys again, and this is a really interesting one, which is creating physical reading spaces. A lot about reading has to do with creating a culture of reading. And along with creating a culture of reading, there are routines that we can use to help people feel, okay, I'm going into my reading zone right now. So for example, when it's reading time, you might say, okay, if we're normally sitting at the desk in circles, then when it's reading time, I'm going to have people sit on the floor. And that might mean that I'm going to bring in sheets if people don't want to get their pants dirty or whatever, which with teenagers might not be the case. But I might bring in sheets and lay them down on the floor for whenever I do reading. I'm okay, it's reading time, guys. So for reading, you can lay down on the floor and read. You can sit and read. You can have tea and read if you want to have a cup of coffee and read. But creating a specific space or physical space or routines that help me know, okay, it's time for reading. I'm going to go into my reading zone now. That oftentimes can help us prepare for reading and also focus and zoom in a lot more for reading. Okay, when my voice starts getting dry, that means I need to stop talking and shut up, which means I'm going to pass it on to you guys. So Mila, Sarah, Frank, Ivan, Ugo, I see that you're connected now, so thank you for being there. What are some of your thoughts about these second tips. Go ahead. Hi, Mila. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think that choosing the reading, connecting the reading to other skills is very important because you can have, for example, a debate. You read about something that is going on right now, and then you can have a debate about it. Okay, so you are relating the speaking skill with the reading skill, or maybe they can write a summary of what they have read, and then read the summary to the other classmates. So we are using several skills at the same time. I think that that's very important. And the topics, I think one of the most difficult things for us is the time, because it takes a lot of time to look for topics that are current and the situations that are current. It's easier to go to the textbook, like you said before. But for example, what I do is I use a lot the internet a lot. There is a website that is called eReading, and it has a lot of interesting texts, reading that are not too long, that are interesting, and they have already they have the exercises. For example, if you want to teach reading comprehension skills, and they have a lot of activities that you can use if you don't have time to plan for something for yourself. But and the reading spaces, I like that idea because I think that I will try that with my students today. Okay, because we could create the reading spaces, and I think it will be a lot of fun for them. I don't know. I learned a lot today. Thank you, Raya, and I am paying attention. Okay, so I can use I'm going to use everything that I like. Okay, I like everything, but some things I like more than others. Okay, but I think that everything is very clear, and that we can use all these strategies for making reading more engaging and fun.
Thank you, Mila. And yeah, I appreciate your words and your comments too. And I absolutely agree with you that number 8, creating physical reading spaces, I think is so important. You know, and for yourself, for us too, as learners, teachers, we're all learners too. Anytime I've been in a classroom and a teacher does something that's a little bit crazy or looks crazy, when in reality it's pedagogically very functional and purposeful. But whenever we see the teacher do something different, like, I don't know, well, what's all these sheets they brought in, and we're on the floor reading, and they even brought in, I don't know, tea, whatever it is, or whatever you can do. It just makes you feel that you're doing something new. It makes you feel excited. It makes you, and those are things that we need, not only in life and in the classroom for sure, right? But in life in general, we need those things that break up the routine and make us feel more excited. And I think that's one way of, for sure, of approaching reading, which can be oftentimes a little bit less exciting for people. So that's where we especially need to bring in these like little crazy little things that we do. So yeah, thank you. Let's see. Sarah, anything you want to add, or Yvonne, go ahead.
Yeah, I like the idea of selecting the text, because related to the question I had on the when to bring authentic materials to a class. And I like the idea you said, it's not about the amount of words or text. It's about the purpose. It's about the text. So it could be authentic, but it's selected. I mean, like for lower level, so I have to select authentic, but select the text I want them to read. And in reading, it's just process and understanding. And that will be very motivating and engaging for them to say they're reading a real text for their level. So and then teaching them to go outside, to go outside the class and find and select text they can read. So they don't have to say, oh no, it's too difficult, oh there's too many words. So they have to go and find and select the text for the level. So I like that idea. So I never took that into account. I thought it was reading, they have to read, bring an article or a magazine article, and then using the same idea. So it's, I don't have to bring the whole article. Maybe I can read a few sentences or a paragraph from the reading, and then still it's authentic.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because one thing I was going to mention when Mila was talking, now you've kind of brought it up, Yvonne, is that, yes, one of the most challenging things of choosing authentic text oftentimes is that it's time consuming. That's true. However, the teacher does not need to do everything. The teacher does not need to be responsible for doing everything and planning everything. I think that's something that's like more of the old paradigm of the teacher is more of the person who's in control and the person who teaches, where nowadays and helping create more autonomous, proactive, independent learners, the students can take on more responsibilities for sure. And one of those could be that the students choose, find, and bring in the readings that they want to read. And of course, it couldn't be filtered by the teacher somewhat or monitored a little bit, whereas maybe once a week, if you have a group of 20, 30 students, once a week, 2 students are in charge as a pair kind of task. They're in charge of finding a reading that they think the class will like. And they bring it in or they maybe send it to the teacher via email or just show it to you the class before. And you're like, okay, that's great, let's do that reading. And then the teacher works around coming up with different tasks that they can do with that task, but with that text. But it really can be the students that choose the text that are in charge of looking for it and they bring it in. And that lessens the work from the teacher a little bit, who are normally completely and totally overworked. So I'd say don't do for the students what they can do for themselves, and don't create lazy students. Create independent students who are responsible for learning.
Yes, I agree with what you just said, Roger, and also mixing that with creating the physical space for reading. Students can also be part of creating that. They can take decisions in the class about what's the best environment for them to be reading. And it's not just, sometimes it is difficult to have a completely different space to the reading class, but just making some small changes, with a phrase that they now know that they are in reading class. So it's the small things that students can also decide, as you were saying, making independent learners. They can create their own reading environment for the class too.
Absolutely, Sarah. That is really true. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so we're going to move on to the last 4 tips for making reading engaging and fun. So number 9 is get students practicing specific reading strategies. We talked about this a little bit earlier, so that they have a specific task, and also because there are many different ways of approaching reading, and there are different ways in which we as human beings read. If I am in college and I am studying, and you know, when you're in college you have to read like 1,000 books in like a day sometimes, then my approach to that reading will probably be more based on skimming and scanning because I can't read it all in detail. If it's something where I am doing research because I need to write a paper, then I probably will read in more detail. If it's that I'm reading because I'm planning a trip, I'm going to travel across Europe, and then I need to figure out, I'm on TripAdvisor and I have to figure out where I'm going to go, what's cheaper, what's easier, what's more exciting, what I want to, then I'm probably going to do that reading in much more detail, and because I can't miss out on all the little details, because then I might get lost or I might not get the best deal, bargain, etc. So since there are different ways in which we approach reading, we need to help students with different types of reading strategies, so that then they're prepared for real life in that sense. And practice in these will help mix up the way in which they approach reading, and it will mix up the activities and practice that we have in the classroom. and hopefully keeping them more engaged. And we'll talk more about the reading strategies in a bit. 10, making the reading task fun and interactive. One thing that I always notice is that when we do reading, it tends to be sit down, open your notebook, read, and do a task. And there's not that much movement, there's not that much excitement. So we can include games. So maybe they have to read something and do a board game. So it's a little bit more interactive and exciting. It might be that they have to read, and then there's a little, I don't know, competition where they have to run to the board and grab the answer that they think will be the answer to one of the questions that you've asked. So finding ways to make it more fun. It doesn't have to be sit and read. No, it could be read, or it could be that the readings are actually around the board somewhere. Around the readings are posted on the walls around the classroom, which is number 11, getting them to move. So, okay, instead of sitting and reading, I want you to stand up, and this is your task. Go find a reading on the wall, read and answer. So they're actually standing, moving, walking around. It might be that they have to read, and after they get the task done, okay, we're going to do a concentric circle kind of activity where you have the inner circle and the outer circle, and you're going to share your answers with the person next to you, and we're going to move around again. So we have to get students moving. It tends to be that when we do speaking, it's more kinesthetic, it's more moving involved, and then for reading, not as much. And I don't know why that would happen. We can do just as much in terms of movement with reading. So we need to get people moving, make it more interactive, and therefore exciting and fun for them. And I think number 12 is mix it up. We need to mix up what we do. It can't be that every single class we have the same kind of assignment. Every single class we have them skim, scan, look, read for details, skim, scan, read for details, skim, scan. And it's the same thing all the time. Or that we have, okay, every class we'll have you read, check with a partner, you stand up twice, and you sit down. By the time you're halfway through the course, students can pretty much predict what the teacher is going to do, what you're going to ask them to do first, second, and third. They know that you're going to ask them to do this and that. So it needs to be that we are mixing things up, just like anything else that we're teaching. When it's mixed up, we have students guessing what they're going to do and not knowing and pretty interested and alert because they want to know what's going to happen next, then it's going to be that you have students engaged and excited. So really mixing it up is extremely important. Okay, before I move on, I'm going to talk about these a little bit, which is actually this next slide, which was to take a minute and think about the 12 tips that we just talked about. But we've actually been doing it in chunks, so we're not going to talk about all 12. Let's just talk about these 4. Maybe if we have one person, because we're starting to run out of time, but one person who can tell us some thoughts, share some thoughts about these 4. Go ahead. Do I have someone there? Maybe, I don't know, maybe Mila or Ugo. I don't know, Ugo, if you're still there, but I see your name.
Yes, I'm still here.
I
Go
also
ahead, Ugo.
see
I
Alicia.
haven't heard your voice yet.
I was just trying to catch up with all the information that you guys are sharing, but I would have to agree with you in the sense because I was looking at some of the tips that you were talking about, but I would say that it doesn't only have to do with reading, but it has to do with many other things that we teach in the class. Because as you were saying, I think sometimes we as teachers tend to make everything a routine. So it gets to a point where we do everything the same way. So it would be the same thing for the reading, right? We come into class, students take out the books, they sit down, they read, then they have questions, they answer them, and then we continue like doing this over and over again. But as you were saying, how meaningful really is that for the student? Like how much of that will stick and how much of that will they actually learn? So I think, as you said, we can make activities fun, but we also, I think one of your tips was that they have to be also tasks focused towards something meaningful, something that they will be doing. So it's not only making the class fun, but it's also making activities that are meaningful for students. And yes, they will have fun, but the main objective of that would be for them to acquire specific information or something that they have to use. But I think that's one of the most challenging things, I think, teaching reading. It's how to keep students engaged and interested in the reading and not just make it as a routine, something that they will continue doing over and over again. Because as you said, then students predict what exactly is coming up next. And I think that's why a lot of students lose interest in reading, because they think it's just sitting down and picking up a book. And we never teach them actually to be interested or engaged in reading. And I think that should be one of the most important things that we as teachers need to get students to love to read. And I think that's one of the most challenging things.
Thank you, Hugo. It's great hearing from you. Yeah, absolutely. It's really about the second we fall into these everyday, these routines that are just, and there are routines that oftentimes can help. Sometimes routines help people fall into a pattern and to work on specific things. But in the classroom, and it's so important that we mix things up so that it's easier for them to stay engaged, and it's a more exciting way of participating and learning for sure. Okay, we're going to continue now. And
Roger?
oh yes, who is Ivan? Go ahead.
I love the idea. I love the idea of mixing, and mixing not only doing physical activity but also ways of reading. I mean, the different tools we can use to do some reading. Like, for example, using a tablet, using a cell phone, a computer, using a website, using a log. Like anything, the newspaper article, a magazine article, like combining and only doing reading with the book, like open your book on page 5 and don't complete the exercise, but using different varieties, like quasi real life. In real life, we don't read the newspaper. Some people don't read a newspaper, and we ask students to read a newspaper in the classroom.
Absolutely, Ivan. That's really interesting, and it's interesting that, I mean, whenever possible, because oftentimes we work with students who don't have lots of lots of these tech devices, but almost everyone has a cell phone now, and even if it's a WhatsApp message or if it's a text message, that is reading too, and it's also about helping making reading more modern, making it more realistic, and or Facebook. How often do students go online and read, and in their free time, and read Facebook? It's a lot. So it's also the big question there is, how can I bring all of these current, realistic ways of reading that happen out there into the classroom? And that might be, through, if they have a tablet, or if there's a computer lab that you can use for Facebook, or if it's just their phones and they can access internet on their phones, or if it's just a text message or a WhatsApp message, then working with that, I think, is extremely, extremely helpful, relevant, and will again help students feel more engaged and excited about it. Absolutely. Okay, guys, we're almost reaching the end of it in terms of time, so we're going to do the following. So the next piece I wanted to do, which is the last piece, is reading strategies. So I'm going to do this. We were just talking about the importance of having a specific task to help you focus. And right now, this is pretty much a listening exercise, because you're listening to me talk here, and we're interacting, but it's mainly a listening exercise and some reading with the slide. So what we're going to do is, I am going to quickly go through these 12. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to quickly go through all 12, but really briefly. And at the end, while I'm talking, your task is to just take notes. And of these 12, which of them is something maybe that you want to try out more? Which of them do you think is most relevant, or that really helps get students engaged, or it's something that would really help them practice their reading more? So I'm going to take notes, and take notes on the ones that speak to you more somehow, okay? And while I go through them. And I'm sure you've seen some of these, and that's great. Let's see if there are any that that you haven't done as much. So one is previewing and predicting, which is getting students before they read based on the headline, the title, or of the article or the reading, or pictures, thinking about what they might read about and predicting what they think it might be about. Another one is contextualizing, which is, again, based on cues of the context of pictures or what the reading might be, the title might be, or helping students contextualize what the reading will be about. Meaning, if it's a reading from something that happened in the 1800s, understanding that time a little bit more, so that when they start the reading, they have a better sense of the context in which that was written. Or if it's something that you get from Facebook, understanding that it's a Facebook article, which means it might not be as, scientific based or as reliable, but understanding the context of what you're about to read. 3, visualizing. Oftentimes it's a great exercise to have students read something, and while they're reading, to visualize what they think it might look like. So adding your own pictures, mental, internal pictures, to what you're reading about, so to bring more life to it, like the picture, that guy's imagining a dress, I guess he's reading about a dress of some sort in that visualizing picture. Skimming, which is I think very common, you're skimming, reading for the gist, the overall meaning of the text. Outlining or sequencing, which is really helpful. Oftentimes when we need to get a sense of what the main points of the reading are, but we can't go in extreme detail, but we want more than just the gist. So you outline the main parts of the reading. Scanning, which is, again, a very common one. You go in and you want to find a very specific piece of information. When was the, bicycle invented? When you go in, 1872. So you go in and you find a very specific piece of information and you come out. Zoom in, zoom out. Making inferences, which is really important because it's something that we do a lot in real life. We read something and we draw our own conclusions based on what's not really said, but that we can infer. So based on what we already know, based on the evidence of what's in the text, we kind of read in between the lines and we make sense of what the author is really saying. Extensive reading, which is when we do reading that's a lot more in terms of over time. It might be that it's not a small 2-page article, but it's actually a whole book. And we do more, we cover a lot more. Maybe not in as much detail, but we cover a lot more. And that's another one. I'm going to move on to the next one, Jigsawing. With Jigsawing, different students get to read different sections, and then they come together and share. It's a lot more interactive. Dramatizing is a really fun one, where students have to read something and then dramatize it. This you can do a lot more when they're reading stuff that maybe is more literature-based or something where it's a role play oftentimes, where they have to read something and then dramatize it. And they might be using the feelings that they think are behind what the author is writing about, what the author is intending to convey. Summarizing is another task where after doing a reading, they have to give you an overall brief summary of what they just read about. It helps them also practice the strategy of synthesizing. Personalizing and discussing is really important, especially towards the end of a reading, to personalize it and bring it back to your own life and context. So you just read about Carlos and his story of when he was in a plane crash or he had an accident. What about yourself? What have been some experiences that you've had in terms of accidents, or what are some things that you've learned about through your family? To make it your own, not just read about someone else or other people, but what does that mean to you personally? And then creating a discussion out of that. And I think I just went through, that was really fast. So I hope that wasn't too fast for all of you. But now, after reading all these 12, I guess out of all these 12, what are some that really spoke to you and you think might help you with your students? Go ahead. And Alicia, and I see that you just joined us a bit ago. I don't know if you want to share something so we get to hear your voice. Oh, no, it says you're offline. I'm sorry. No, Alicia. So I don't know if Mila or Sarah or Yvonne, Frank, anything you want to show, or Hugo, in terms of these 12 reading strategies, that any of them that spoke to you? Go ahead, Yvonne.
Augusto is also connected.
Hi, Augusto. Go ahead, Mila.
I think that all of these reading strategies are very good. I think that we have done most of them, but maybe we can. There are some that I've seen for the first time, like Jigsawing. Can you explain a little bit about that one?
Absolutely, Mila. So for Jigsawing, let's say you have an article that maybe has 5 paragraphs in it, and you want them to read that. So what you do is you assign each student a different paragraph. So student A does paragraph 1, student B paragraph 2, and so on, and they are responsible for only reading their paragraph. And then after they read, you bring them together, and they have to explain to each other what they understood from that article and kind of put the 5 different pieces together to create the overall meaning of the reading. If it's a bigger thing like a book, it might be like as homework, you reading chapter 1, I'm reading chapter 2, someone else reads chapter 3, and then we have to come together and either share in written form or through speaking the main points or ideas from what we read. So you put the pieces together like a jigsaw.
I like that one. I like it.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, absolutely. I like it. Thank you, Rayo. I think that everything was wonderful. I learned a lot today. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank, I don't know how we're doing in terms of time. It feels like we might have to start wrapping up, right? We're a little bit over an hour now, so I'm guessing. So just to wrap up then, let's just talk about a couple of takeaways, May, some things that you got from the past hour and 7 minutes of your life for those who started from the very beginning. What's something that you think that you might be able to put in practice, or something you want to try out, or any final comments? Go ahead.
Also, I think keeping in mind all the strategies students can develop in the classes, but also how to incorporate different skills, abilities with reading. It's not just it's read and that's it, as you were saying, but it's making a complete and an integral process with reading. So using the strategies, but also paying attention to the multiple intelligences that can be involved in them. So I think that's the idea I'll keep for the reading classes.
Thank you, Sarah. Somebody else? Hugo, go ahead.
From all of this, what I would take would be making, well, not only reading, but when we're teaching, making it meaningful. So as you were saying, like giving the space for students to create something or for them to be incorporated in what's being taught. I think that when students are part of the learning process, they're the ones who create something, they're the ones who come to class and they build something, then it's more likely to stick than if we just tell students exactly what to do. So as you were saying, if we fall into like routines and we just follow into like repeat the same thing over and over, it's going to get to a point where students are there and they know that they have to be there to read, and that's the whole point of it. But then we're leaving so many things out, and then I think that's why, as I was saying, there's a lot of students that understand and can do the tasks, but then don't really like reading because they never really got to that part of actually enjoying reading. So I think that if we create spaces for students to build something, then they're going to want to come to class and they'll be like, look, can we do this reading, or can we do this, or I researched and I saw this. So we have students that come to class because they want to be in class and they want to show us things. They want to be part of the class. But if we just tell students all the time, read this, do this, continue doing this, then they're just going to follow the process, and every day they're just learning to listen and to follow instructions. And that's not the point when we're teaching. It's for them to feel part of the class, for them to be able to give their opinions, for them to create something. So I think overall, as you were saying, it's trying to be creative and finding new ways of incorporating students, and at the end of the day, make it meaningful to them, for them to connect to the material and take something from it.
Thank you, Hugo. That was really great. Thank you. Go ahead, Ivan.
All right. I've been using the Learning Center perspective in other skills, but reading and writing. And from this webinar, what I'm taking is I should have students participate in the decision making when doing reading, so they can help me selecting what they want to read. And then so reading is active, flexible, fun, and with a purpose. And the purpose, not my purpose, is the students' ones. Yeah. So thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Ivan. Maybe we can hear one more person before we end the webinar. I don't know if maybe Mila or Who else is out there? Augusto. Go ahead, Mila.
I want to thank you for everything that we have learned today. And I wanted to ask if Franklin is going to put it on Facebook, the session.
Yes, it's being
Conversation.
recorded and it will be on the Facebook page.
Okay,
Yeah, is that
so
true, Frank? You can confirm that?
Yeah. I'm recording the session and it will be ready. Don't worry about that.
Okay, so because I want to review some things when I have time tonight, and I think that everything is very, all those are very great ideas, and I think that using Realia in our classrooms is the most effective way to teach and to learn English. Use newspapers, use magazines, use everything that you have at hand, and create like Hugo said, make students create, make students experiment, and make students create their own reading environment. And I think that's very good.
Thank you, Mila. I appreciate your comment. Okay, guys, so I think that's going to be the wrap up for today. Thank you very much for participating. It was great having you guys, and I really appreciate how you all shared so much and you participated a lot this time. So it makes it a lot more, it makes the webinar a lot more interactive, and that I definitely appreciate. So thank you. I don't know, Frank, if there's anything else you need to add before we end the session.
Yeah, there's one more webinar coming, right? This is number 3.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So we're going to.
Will you tell? Yes. Do you know when the date might be?
Yeah, we're going to set the date. We don't have now, but Ivan, and we're going to send you a proposal,
Okay.
Roger. But it's always a Tuesday.
Absolutely.
It's always a Tuesday. Today we try in the morning at 11 in the morning, so we'll see maybe much better if it's working in the afternoon.
Maybe at midnight.
Yes. So we're going to send you the next session, the date, and thank you for being part of this webinar number 3. And we hope to see you again very soon.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Roger, for sharing what you have learned, sharing with us.
Thank you, Franklin. Thank you. Thanks to everyone. I hope you all have a great day. We'll be in touch then.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye,
Roger.
Yvonne. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Roger.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
for using the
Bye-bye.
Mago Center Piralmana. Have a good one, Roger.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.